What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to another video with me, man, Measureaholic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my Total War Rome 2 campaign using the Divide at Impera mod, playing as the Cimbri, Episode 7. Okay, so for this episode today, we're going to be focusing on trying to move forward with our campaign. We're going to be trying to make some progression here. And we're actually going to be starting off by ambushing a Massalian army that came right at us from the north, from Arretium, which I was actually trying to invade, but this Massalian army got in the way and I managed to set up an ambush just in time. I did fight the battle manually. I'm not going to show you though, it was a very bad battle overall though. The enemy was actually on top of a hill while I surrounded them down below. It was a terribly horrible, just all kinds of bad ambush map. So we actually ended up fighting slightly uphill, and we took a lot of casualties for it, and we ended up losing our veteran swords, which really sucked. But we did get a few turns of reprieve after, and our army recovered. However, the Illyrians and the Romans have armies to our southeast down here, so I was kind of stuck in a face-off with them. I had my army garrisoned in Rome. I was expecting a kind of one last final stand, epic moment, but then the armies just left. The Roman army went up towards Arretium, and then the Illyrian army went north as well, into the Fog of War, I believe. I'm not too sure exactly where it went, but I know it went north. So they ignored us, and so I'm actually going to go ahead and take the opportunity to try and take Arretium here. There's a couple reasons for it. One, it's another town. Obviously, we need more tax and more income. But the main primary reason I want it is for its population. Rome is actually down to around 800 people living inside the city. That's insane. That's basically turning it into a tiny fishing village. And so we really need a larger manpool to recruit from, and now we're going to try and get it. Here is the battle for Arretium, and it's not a siege. The enemy army sallied out against us, although it is a night battle because I wanted to avoid the Massalian army that was stationed outside the city. And we're going to be charging up this hill in a bit of a tight formation with my whole army. My cavalry is at the front because I was trying to make sure I beat the enemy to the top. However, we unfortunately don't beat them to the top, and they actually send their own cavalry up against mine here. You can see them coming out on Fog of War. We're going to charge right on into them. We have 2 units against their 1, so we are going to win that engagement, and it does buy us enough time to move the army on top of the hill. We don't have the entire high ground, but we have a good chunk of it, and so it's going to be a fairly favorable engagement. We are just going up against a garrison army, but it is a really, really big one. It has about 9 Italian swordsman units on their own, in addition to other units. So this is definitely not going to be an easy battle, but the ground that we find ourselves on is fairly even advantageous in some spots. I try to flank with my skirmishers really, really quickly so I can try and hit the enemies in the back with my javelins. In addition, I'm going to be trying to coordinate my archers at the rear to do some flaming shot on the enemy once I see them start to waver. Here we're going to be getting some downhill charges and javelins thrown into the enemy. My elite skirmishers that I have are actually really, really useful. I'm really loving them. Not only are they skirmishers, do they do a lot of damage to heavy infantry. So, but they actually also have spears, and I believe swords. I'm not entirely certain on that. I need to have another look at them again, but they actually have really good melee stats in general. So after you use all your javelins with them, you can get them into a fight, and they'll do relatively well against most basic units. They won't beat like a Principe unit or anything that dramatic, but they will keep them pinned in place for a while, and if you gang up on a Principe unit, the 2 of your skirmishers, they might actually end up winning the fight, but they will take a lot of losses. But here you're seeing the enemy start to waver in the center and uphill on the higher right flank. And then down here on the left, we're starting to get more of the same as well. We won the cavalry engagement, so I'm trying to get some rear charges happening very quickly. My archers are getting involved with their flaming shot, although they're starting to get low on ammo. And our skirmishers come in with some rear charges, in addition to some of my axemen once they broke through the enemy's right-hand flank. And we actually end up routing the enemy army relatively decently. We don't take too many casualties. You can see the flaming arrows coming in here hot and heavy, in addition to a flank charge, and it just causes the enemy to do a mass rout. And we get the victory, we get Arretium and a new source of manpower. And there it is. We lost 646 men taking the city, which is honestly not bad whatsoever, considering we're up against 3,200. That's a large garrison. The Romans had built military buildings inside the town, which is why they had so many. I debated looting the town. We really need the money, but I don't want to hurt the population or cause more rebellions, which I've been dealing with about every second or third turn since we've taken Rome. It's been insane. Public order is just terrible, but it's okay. We're getting through it. We now have a new town that we can recruit from the 30,000 available manpower, so that's going to be really helpful. And I actually go ahead and start recruiting a second army up there pretty quickly. It's very small, as you can see. It has some mercenaries and some Teriski axemen, trying to get some Samnite swordsmen as well to come fight for us. While my main army was starting to march back down south, I wanted to retake Beneventum and create another ally again, just to get another buffer happening. However, we have some issues up here in the north at Arretium. The Massalians come in again with 2 more entire stacks of armies. We're holding this one at the river with our small army and the garrison in support. This is almost certainly an unwinnable battle, but at the very least, maybe we can do a lot of damage to stop them from taking Arretium without a decent fight at the very least. So here we are with the defense of Arretium. And we're beginning with a hail of javelins, which is very fitting considering our army makeup. We're using, I should say, a lot of skirmishes in our armies, and it's actually proven to be quite useful for the most part. We annihilate some of the enemy cavalry and we slow them down on the bridge. I'm using some mercenary hoplites that will help hold the enemy in place, but they're not going to get a lot of kills, so that's going to be a problem. I'm trying to get my axemen close to the river so they can flank the enemies that come off the bridge. But I only have the 3 units there. And down here by the river ford, the enemy's charging in and they're using their own skirmishes against mine. So we're going to be taking some pretty heavy casualties early on from those barrages. Thankfully, most of their units engage, and so their skirmishes are actually going to do a fair bit of friendly fire. Nothing too crazy, but that's why I'm trying to engage some of my units. Otherwise, I'm just pulling them back out of range of the enemy skirmishes. But we're using, again, a combination of Teriski axemen or Teriski swordsmen. They have a mixture of swords and axes in conjunction with some mercenary hoplites that will hold the wall, or hold the line, I should say, very nicely. Just like a wall, to be honest. They're very, very hard to break through. But the enemy brings in their own hoplites, and they're going to be trying to push back and grind my hoplites down. And they will do it over time. Their hoplites are better. Mine are only mercenaries. And my hoplites just don't have the support that they need. They don't have skirmishes, unlike the enemy here, who's just pummeling my hoplites again and again. And so it's honestly just a matter of time. We do have my garrison troops coming in, though. But I'm going to set them up to get some flanking charges on the enemy, in addition to letting their javelins loose. But we're fighting a losing battle here, although we are really clogging up the enemy's advance, and we are killing a fair few of them, especially with my axemen getting in some flank charges and some flank attacks. It's really not a bad combination at all. I might try to make more hoplite armies with axemen in supporting roles, but we'll see. I need to test it out a little bit more. I still haven't had a full hoplite army yet. Fighting here is getting very chaotic. As you can see, the enemy is sending in their own axemen to support their hoplites. So it's pretty brutal for the most part, the fighting. My garrison troops finally arrive and we let loose with some javelins on the flanks. However, at this point my troops have been fighting for a good 5 to 10 minutes now. All of my troops are tired, depleted. We don't have a general, by the way. Keep in mind, I didn't mention that, but our general was actually assassinated at the beginning of this battle, like just before it began, by an enemy spy, and so that's really going to hurt our morale as well. and we lose a valuable unit in it. I didn't realize it initially when I began this battle, but after a few minutes I was like, hang on, where the hell is my good general's unit? And he wasn't there, so he must have been assassinated, or at least wounded. Fighting is getting more and more intense and chaotic. However, the enemy is just too numerous in number, and they're all excellent troops that we're going up against. And so because of that, we fast forward time and we lose to a massive wave of all my troops routing at once, or at least one by one, and then all by once. They just broke through too heavily on the bridge, and once they broke through there, the other troops at the ford ended up running, and we have a close defeat. Okay, so fortunately the Massalians actually didn't take Arretium. Instead they focused on just sitting outside of the city. I think we had depleted enough of their troops, and my main army was close enough to that they were too scared to take the town. So I'm actually going to move forward with my main army and just actually auto-resolve the fight. We have more than enough troops to handle them, and auto-resolving after they've retreated will guarantee that they all get wiped out. Although manually fighting, I guess it would be the same outcome, but it would be a big time waster, to be honest. I could not be bothered. We only lost 500 troops, mainly mercenary cavalry. That's fine with me. We can replace those. It's not a big deal, especially now that we have our new manpower pool to pull from. However, again, the Illyrians and the Massalians, they're obsessed with me. It's crazy. They're coming back to us at Arretium. We have a major bridge defense to hold. So this is going to be very different because we're actually attacking in this. Initially it was going to be a defense. I retreated my army because I didn't want to fight the bridge battle against two full armies. And then the Illyrians didn't push, so I actually came back and attacked them. So while this is also a bridge defense, it's technically a bridge attack because I'm the one who initiated the fight here. And it's a night battle because I wanted to fight the Illyrian army just on its own, not the Massalians in reserve, which is what initially was happening. So that might be why it seems a little bit confusing, but basically we're defending Arretium by attacking an Illyrian army here at night. I'm trying to draw them across the river and harass them with my archers and skirmishers, but for the most part they're not really going to bite or give me too much to work with. It also doesn't help that my arrows aren't very effective against their more shielded troops. They have very large shields that help protect them. However, I didn't focus my fire on their slingers, and that will cut them down very nicely. I also send a cavalry detachment across the river to try and provoke the enemy. They're going to hammer it, but I don't care too much. It's a mercenary unit that's, at a third of its strength and manpower. They're not going to be all that useful in a fight, so I tried to provoke them to come attack me, which kind of worked. They sent their own cavalry attachment across, but here you can see them getting decimated very, very, very quickly. Our skirmishes were just too much for them, and they just couldn't handle it. So they're going to get pummeled in water, and none of them even get to touch any of my friendly units. It's absolute slaughter. That's crazy. I probably should have turned some of my skirmishers off fire at will, but well, we decimated the cavalry, which is good because we need to get the advantage on them. And so after that occurred, I actually ended up pushing forward. I noticed that the enemy had split their army basically in two, and so if I can rush out there, get some favorable engagements, and get my cavalry and skirmishers around their flanks, I could decimate their heavy units very quickly. So I'm going to be trying to micromanage my skirmishers and cavalry to be behind the enemy. You're seeing that done right here. It wasn't as effective as I would have hoped because we expended a lot of ammunition earlier in the engagement where we were just holding the river. But we are starting to decimate a few of their units fairly quickly, but they did reinforce the river ford very, very quickly. So it's going to take me a little while until we're starting to get some solid routes from them. But since they reinforced the river ford and left the bridge relatively unguarded, they had about 3 more units left, I started to push across. However, they did start to send troops back to the bridge, but it didn't matter. I'd already got most of my troops across, and so we're actually going to be getting very favorable engagements here, and I have archers and skirmishers to help out there. In addition to my cavalry who are running rampant behind the enemy lines, We're trying to kill the last of their cavalry, and then once we do that, we'll be starting to get rear charges into them very nicely and juicily. Juicily? Is that even a word? Whatever it is, we'll go with it. You know what I mean? We're getting some very nice, cheeky rear charges on the enemy. Even here at the bridge, we're breaking through. Back here at the river ford, we have a bunch of enemy units wavering at once. My general's getting involved now. He's popping his abilities, and he's getting some very nice charges, considering he's a heavy cavalry unit. I'm trying to divert troops from the bridge down to the river, and finally they get there, and they're going to get some very nice rear charges on the enemy in addition to my cavalry. Now they're just getting absolutely smashed. My cavalry, my swordsmen, my axemen are starting to do some very nice hammer and anvil charges against them. And now they're kind of down to just a few units that are a little bit more elite. Their professional soldiers are holding out much longer than the rest of their army did. We still have some javelins coming in, which also decimate them as well. But with the javelins, the reinforcements of infantry coming in addition to the cavalry hammer and anvil charges, it's just too much for them, and they are going to break here. We ended up running down the general after the battle. He ran away like a coward, but he finally defended Arretium completely, and we win an excellent battle. Here are the statistics if you want to have a look yourself. Feel free. For the most part, you can see most of my skirmishes did really well. My axemen did absolutely fantastic. One unit had 600 kills? What do you mean? That's crazy. Although a good chunk of that is killing routing units, but still, it shows that this unit will stay alive and keep going if given the right engagement. I'm pretty happy with all of the units in the army that I have right now, except maybe my top 2 axemen. They're not armor piercing like the Turiski axemen are, so I need to try to swap those out when I can, but the Turiski are limited. We wiped that army entirely out, and although there is another full Massalian stack in the background, I'm feeling fairly confident that we can hold the river crossing against them if they decide to attack us, but they actually didn't in the following turns, and so that's going to give me even more breathing room to figure out what direction I want to go to next. I'm thinking we either try to take Ariminum or we head back down to Beneventum to try and start creating some more Italian allies to help us in our struggle for independence, for a free kingdom of Germanians in Italy. All we want to do is live peacefully, right? But anyway, hopefully this will help us continue expanding our new Germanic empire. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.